Hello, my name is Ian Fish. My topic was hotspot policing in America and how I think a general critique of it, how I think it should be done a little bit differently and just take a second look at by policymakers and people because there's always room for improvement. I don't think it's necessarily wrong. I just think you kind of need to take a second look at it. So hotspot policing in general is used by 72% of all police departments in America, according to my first source that I'll go over shortly. Um, it is the concept that police departments will dump more resources, police officers, so on and so forth, into specific areas that they perceive need that attention. So areas they perceive to have more burglaries, robberies, murders, whatever, this, that, the other, they'll put more resources there to make more arrests, more traffic stops, and police better. Yes. So the uh, two main findings that I found were one that hotspot policing in general creates a disparity between communities or between the community that's being policed. So crime is not only happening in this one policed area, in this hotspot. Crime is happening in other places across the community as well. And often in many studies, we find that crime is happening in equal rates or a little bit lesser rates in other areas. Just different types of crime, but crime in general is still occurring. So when you're funneling all your resources into a specific area like these police departments do, you're completely ignoring, not completely, but you are ignoring to an extent other facets of your community. It creates a disparity between the community. It creates a separation. And I think that just needs to be looked at to a certain extent. And the second key finding that I had was how these police departments are actually going about finding these hotspots in their communities. A lot of these smaller police departments, the ones that do use hotspot policing, and some poorer police departments have difficulty analytically finding out and statistically finding out what areas actually have high crime rates. So a lot of the times what ends up happening is a lot of police officers end up getting dumped into a perceived high crime rate area, make a bunch of arrests, make a bunch of traffic stops, so on and so forth, and then they say, okay, yeah, that area is a hot spot. We're looking at all these arrests we're making, all these traffic stops we're making, arrests we're making. When the reality is all you did was just dump a bunch of police officers there, and because you did that, now you're making more arrests, which makes sense. More police officers, more arrests. That's just how it works. So those are the two key findings that I had, and just like that, we need to take a second look on both of those topics. So the core concepts that I tied into this were one, rational choice theory, and I think rationally these police departments are looking at these specific areas and thinking, yes, this poor neighborhood must be higher crime rate than this rich neighborhood. So they dump a bunch of police officers, make a bunch of arrests. Like, look, we confirmed our beliefs. Like, we're making all these arrests when the reality is there might be a ton of white collar crime and so on and so forth happening in this more wealthy neighborhood. And the second concept that I tied it into was I gotta find it, was a labeling theory, and this kind of ties into the same concept that all these police departments, not all, so a large portion of these police departments might be looking at these specific communities, labeling them as high crime rate, high priority, dump a bunch of police officers there, cycle continues. So those three sources that I decided to summarize or just to look at decided to take a look at and point out was first what I mentioned, the 72% of the police department, or 72% of the police departments that use hotspot policing. That statistic came from Braga, Anthony, and David Weisberg's Policing Problem Places, Crime Hotspots and Effective Prevention from Oxford University in 2010. And this is the first source that I got from my bibliography overall, and it just gave me a good upfront look at what hotspot policing was and how many places are using it, and that was kind of the most useful information I got from that. The second source I decided to use was Weisberg, David, and Anthony Allen Braga, Contrasting Perspectives, from Cambridge University in 2019. So this is very recent, and it gave me a look at the disparity between communities and so on and so forth. And the third source, that I decided to use was Weisberg, David, Cody, and a bunch of other people, and that it was policing effective in reducing crime and disorder, finding from findings from a Campbell systematic review. Sorry, caught my tongue there. This was one of the more recent ones that I found, and it gave me a good look at the analytical data behind hotspot policing and stuff like that. So would I do this topic again? I think so, yes. It was very interesting because I'm not trying to necessarily disprove hotspot policing and say that it's wrong, or that we need to completely rid ourselves of it. I think it has its place, and I just think we need to take a second look at it and get another grasp on it. So I do think it's interesting, and how I think this could affect policy, I think is obvious. But I will state that there's always room for improvement. So, like I said, I don't think it's necessarily wrong, this hotspot policing concept, and I just think we need to take a second look and go about adding on to it, if anything. So I think I covered everything. Got everything. I hit just about 6 minutes. Yep. See ya.